The world of business is more complex than ever. The world of human resources and compensation is also getting more complex. Welcome to the HR Data Labs podcast, your direct source for the latest trends from experts inside and outside the world of human resources. Listen as we explore the impact that compensation strategy, data, and people analytics can have on your organization. This podcast is sponsored by Salary.com, your source for data, technology, and consulting for compensation and beyond. Now, here are your hosts, David Turetsky and Dwight Brown.
Hello and welcome to the HR Data Labs podcast. I'm your host, David Turetsky, alongside my friend, partner, co-host, BFF, Dwight Brown from Salary.com. Dwight Brown.
You hesitated long enough where I wondered what was going to come out of your mouth next.
You know, every so often, it's not bad to keep people waiting.
Yeah, that's exactly it. The suspense was killing me. Good to see it.
Hopefully it didn't kill you. You're okay.
Well, yeah,
it's not like jumping out of a plane kill you.
Yeah, exactly. I do other things that'll do that.
It's a lot safer for having me not say something than it is jumping out of a plane. But Dwight, you know, we have with us a really brilliant guest today. And I don't say that often, or I might say it often, but I mean it today. Because the guy we have with us is Chris Fusco from Salary.com. Chris, how are you?
I am excellent. Thank you.
Oh, I'm glad to hear it.
Pleased to be here.
Excellent. Well, we're really happy to have you because today we're going to be talking about a really fun topic, one we really don't talk about a lot. But before we get there, Chris, why don't you give people a little bit about your background?
I am a career compensation professional. I've spent my career in both corporate and consulting environments. And I joined Salary.com back in 2002.
Wow.
Where I could take my experience and my learnings and translate that into helping employers determine how much and how to pay their employees.
So we should blame you then for Salary.com, partly. No, I'm kidding. Because actually one of the wonderful things that is going on with Salary.com this year is it's our 25th anniversary. And so we will be probably spending the entire year celebrating 25 years of Salary.com. Isn't that amazing, Chris?
That is amazing. Yeah, I've been here for most of those 25 years.
Wonderful. And when I call you brilliant, I don't mean that just in the context of, you know, you're a friend and, you know, I like working with you, but the fact that not only have you been so much at Salary.com and have spent so much time here, but the things you've affected, and we're going to be talking a little bit about one of them today, but why don't you tell people a little bit about the skills products that you're working on today? Because that's really pretty fascinating.
Yeah, I'm currently engaged in building the most comprehensive competency library that exists. And our library covers all of the jobs that you would find in our Comp Analyst Market Data product. That's over 6,000 jobs. So for over 6,000 jobs, we have built competency model. And those are complete with competency definitions and behavioral indicators. And we've added interview questions and learning and development guidance. And the database continues to grow as we, work on each consecutive update of the frameworks.
And it's extremely comprehensive too. And so I'm not trying to oversell it here, but you and a very small team are actually doing this. It's pretty fascinating stuff.
Yeah. And it's also fascinating to me that the team is entirely remote, including myself. So we work effectively as a team, even though we've never met one another face to face.
We should have that changed. We should definitely spend some time and money getting you guys to be in the same room, unless that upsets the dynamic, in which case, don't do it.
Yeah, right.
So, Chris, one thing that no one knows about Chris Fusco.
I'm an avid sailor. I love to sail. And I have never capsized a boat.
But you jinxed it now.
Yeah. You haven't sailed hard enough, apparently, Chris.
Yeah, right.
You haven't gone to the North Sea, apparently.
But when I was learning how to sail, I thought to myself, I never want to run aground.
Oh.
And my instructor said, oh, it'll happen someday. And sure enough, One day I ran the boat aground and had to then deal with that.
Yeah, but that's not as bad as like being out in the middle of an ocean and having to capsize and then figure out how the heck you're going to get home.
Yeah,
Oh, that would
exactly.
be.
At least you got some ground to stand on when you're running around.
Right. Now, by the way, Dwight says that, and Dwight is one of these people who likes to jump out of perfectly good planes. Or he likes to use these gliding mechanisms that are not part of a arm structure. They're actually things that he rents. So, Dwight actually jumps off perfectly good cliffs and mountains.
Right. I try to get off ground.
Off ground. And then in the air to then hit the ground again.
Exactly. So running aground, but no capsizing. Never once? Even on a little sunfish boat or something?
Well, I've sailed everything from a sunfish to a 39-foot cabin cruiser. But it makes me think that if I was able to run aground, then I'm able to capsize a boat. So, I'm thinking that's going to happen someday.
Yeah, never say never, right?
Knock on wood, please, would you? Come on. We definitely don't want to hear any reports of you capsizing now.
Yeah, exactly.
Then we'll feel like we were culpable in that. So today we have a fascinating conversation ahead of us. And it's a topic we haven't really covered here at all, which is kind of strange. And it's about how to measure job satisfaction. So why don't we get into it? So Chris, what is job satisfaction and why does anybody care? What does it matter?
The Use Case podcast is where technology vendors get to talk about themselves. And it's a wonderful place for vendors, investors, and practitioners to listen to the story of the solution, the features, the benefits, the attributes, etc. And we get to know the CEO or founder during the call, and we also get to know the tech. So subscribe to the Use Case podcast.
It does matter because job satisfaction is a feeling of fulfillment or enjoyment that an employee derives from performing their job. And think about fulfillment. That means things like positive feedback from performing your job or feedback from your manager or teammates. If that feedback is positive, you're likely to be more satisfied with your job.
Sure.
Than if the feedback was negative. And then since it's a feeling of fulfillment and enjoyment means things like, do you have a best friend at work? But basically, job satisfaction equates to retention. If you have satisfied employees, you have a better chance of retaining those employees.
But you said it's a feeling. And it's we're complex organisms. Mm-hmm. It's very hard to consistently have that feeling 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week, 20, 80 a year, for as long as, you've been working here for as long as anybody here almost. How do we keep job satisfaction going? And is it something that a company should even try and achieve?
Yeah, you've got to have interventions on factors that explain job satisfaction, things like relationships, commute, recognition, career growth. Employers can focus on those things. They can focus on career growth by developing a career path for their employees to look at and aspire to. Recognition is a no-brainer in my mind. Just a manager giving a pat on the back to an employee for a job well done. So that's how you maintain it. And if the employee is living that definition, that job satisfaction is the fulfillment or enjoyment that an employee derives from performing their job, that can be self-sustaining. As long as you have tuned the factors of job satisfaction within your organization, you can keep it humming, for a duration until there's some major change within the organization or in the marketplace where they compete. And then an employer would need to revisit those factors of job satisfaction.
And I think you point out an important thing that I think a lot of companies struggle with and a lot of managers struggle with, and that is the difference between extrinsic job satisfaction and intrinsic job satisfaction. And are they truly separate? Or, based on what you just said, extrinsic probably can help keep the intrinsic going. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would. I guess intrinsic and extrinsic can be good to discern. However, they need to be combined into a package of job satisfaction factors in order to be effective at increasing job satisfaction. For example, women report a lower job satisfaction than men. And a lot of that has to do with the gender wage gap and also other potential signs of discrimination, such as being passed up for a promotion or not having the career development opportunities that maybe some men do. So when it comes to things like a gender wage gap, the organization can dig into the data and conduct an internal equity analysis to determine if there is a gap. And if there is a gap, then, look at, adjust compensation for female employees, offer them more flexibility, because women today still carry the majority of household tasks than their male counterparts do. Employers just need to be mindful of these factors that influence job satisfaction and use them to drive job satisfaction.
Chris, if I might, is the context of a company trying to keep their employees satisfied maybe an older concept, given the fact that there are so many signals we're getting from different generations that employment at will isn't just a legal term anymore. It's really kind of the relationship they feel with their company, given that so many companies feel like, or so many employees feel like everything's so transactional these days. Is satisfaction still something that's useful for a company?
When I think about an answer to that question, I think about the idea that job satisfaction was the state of talent intelligence 20 or 30 years ago. And today, talent intelligence has broadened to include things like role-based onboarding and the process by which candidates are hired for the job opening they were selected for. But job satisfaction is still important today. One of the most common tools that's used to measure job satisfaction is the employee survey. And the employee survey is chock full of questions about, do you have a good relationship with your manager? Do you have a good relationship with your teammates? Are you happy with your compensation, benefits, all those things that go into an employee satisfaction survey often use the word satisfaction. Are you satisfied with your pay? Are you satisfied with your benefits?
Right.
Like what you hear so far? Make sure you never miss a show by clicking subscribe. This podcast is made possible by Salary.com. Now, back to the show.
That actually brings up the second question, which is, how does an employee really know if employees are satisfied? Is it really the satisfaction survey, or are there other elements that we have to take into consideration as well?
Yeah, I mean, if you take this perspective that a workplace is a social event sponsored by your employer.
We're not talking about the Christmas party.
Yeah, exactly.
And, that socialization is the foundation of a good culture.
Yep.
And if your culture is amenable to the employees in that organization, they'll be more satisfied working there.
Is that really kind of believing in the mission, or is that really liking the people you work with and liking the situation you're in?
Or both.
Or both.
One big indicator of job satisfaction is quality of leadership. Leadership is in that social arena of the company and its employees. And, employees, in my research of current job satisfaction statistics, quality of leadership is relatively high on the list of factors that influence job satisfaction. So I think the answer to your question is yes.
And what that leadership looks like differs from work group to work group.
Sure.
Because a good leader has to be able to discern what is it that work group needs to feel satisfied in their job, or if feel enamored with their job, not just satisfied, but
Right.
And that can be a frustrating thing, I would imagine, too, is just trying to dial in on that and figure out what is the secret sauce for this particular work group, and then how can I bring myself as a leader to foster that.
Yeah, the factors that you're right about that, Dwight, because the factors that influence job satisfaction in one organization can differ to the next. Flexibility is a top driver of employee satisfaction.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just satisfaction with their schedule, but it's also satisfaction with benefit, the flexibility that's offered through a benefits program.
Oh, yeah.
The flexibility that's offered through the types of projects that you get to work on. But in terms of flexibility, remote work continues to be a hot topic ever since the beginning of the pandemic. Compensation is also in the top 10, but it's not up at the top. It's usually down, like 10, 9, 7. In a recent survey conducted by the conference board, they said that that factor was actually number 10 on their list. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I believe it because, you look at, there's some highly compensated people out there who are living absolute miserable lives. They're working 90, 100 hours a week. Recently, in the last couple weeks, we saw, unfortunately, a fatal implication of that. But I think sometimes organizations try to substitute money for satisfaction and well-being and those sorts of things, and not realizing it just doesn't work that way.
Right.
Yep. Managers are prone to throwing money at employee relations issues. Someone who is not satisfied is the greasy wheel that might get a promotion or a pay raise.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess this all comes down to the idea that transparency, growth potential, and workload, as you suggested, Dwight, are the sweet spots for organizations to focus on to improve job satisfaction in 2025.
And we see pay transparency, which tries to create a level of trust from the beginning of someone's journey with a company. What about, you mentioned the word transparency, and I know you didn't use pay, but transparency. Do you think that companies are going to be more open to being more open in the future because pay will now be open? So will they kind of open up a little bit more about their policies and about how things happen and allow transparency to be more thorough across an organization?
Yes. I'm currently writing a book, which the notional title might be Fair, Transparent, and Aligned Compensation Management. And transparency does go a long way to the success of a compensation system.
You and I both remember a time when we used to tell people never to talk about comp, because if you talk about comp, I'll fire you. Stop this water cooler talk.
Transparency is used in a broader definition when it comes to job satisfaction, because it also might be the transparency employees need in their company's financials,
right,
to understand how their bonus is determined.
Right. Well, and how they are working toward their goals, right, or not, and that does lead to incentives. But it would be great to be more open and more honest about what's going on in the market, what's going on in the company, how that translates to, am I doing my job effectively? So there's a lot of transparency that would be useful in order to be able to make that relationship, that employee relationship, more mature, instead of you can't handle the truth.
Right.
You want the adult to adult relationship as opposed to the adult to child relationship.
Exactly. Well, it's always been that command and control, right? Instead of being that honesty or the shared vision, at least.
And transparency and trust also go hand in hand with that.
Exactly.
One breeds the other. And I think in trusting environments, the idea of transparency probably is less of an emphasis because people trust that they're being paid the same in high trust environments. And likewise in low trust environments, they might not necessarily trust that. But at the same time, you can have those things paired up and have those be big drivers of satisfaction.
And when it comes to drivers of intent to stay, that's, an organization getting a picture of future retention by conducting stay interviews. But drivers of intent to stay include quality of leadership and organizational culture, not pay. It's more intrinsic than pay, which would be an extrinsic factor.
Right.
That makes sense.
Hey, are you listening to this and thinking to yourself, man, I wish I could talk to David about this? Well, you're in luck. We have a special offer for listeners of the HR Data Labs podcast. A free half-hour call with me about any of the topics we cover on the podcast or whatever is on your mind. Go to salary.com/HRDL consulting to schedule your free 30-minute call today. Let's touch on the third question, which I think a lot of people might be thinking now, given our conversation, which is, so what should an employer do if they have less than hoped for job satisfaction scores? What is the most important metric they should focus on?
Well, I mentioned before that transparency, growth potential, and workload are the sweet spots for organizations to focus on to improve job satisfaction in 2025. I would add to that flexibility and growth potential.
And when you say flexibility, you were talking a little bit before about flexibility as far as work arrangements. Are we also talking about flexibility in other ways, or are you really trying to mean how you get the job done, get it done? Just, we trust you. We trust you're going to get it done.
I think the conventional wisdom around that is that the best approach to flexibility is to offer a hybrid schedule for your employees, where they come into the office 3 days a week and work from home the other 2 days. That seems to be, where the critical thinkers are headed.
So the era of work totally from home, do you see that coming to a close?
I don't. I think that especially during the pandemic, when organizations were having their employees work from home, organizations were hiring, the pandemic opened up the recruiting market,
right?
From a local or regional recruiting market to a national recruiting market. Because, hey, we have remote employees now. It's going pretty well. So why not hire talented employees in other parts of the country?
Or even internationally.
Yes.
Especially, yeah. So, Chris, I know that's not a specific formula. And as you said, there are different variations in those factors for different companies and different industries. But if a company was interested in being able to look at those models and be able to at least talk about how to improve those metrics that you were describing, what would you suggest their first step be? Would it be to make sure that their surveys are completely up to date and that they are kind of more modeled around the more industry standard job satisfaction models?
The first step is data gathering. As with many initiatives, data gathering is the first step. For an organization that wanted to research job satisfaction, there are a number of avenues they can take, like Glassdoor.
Yep.
An organization can see what active employees and former employees are saying about the organization. Is the feedback being given there positive or negative? informal conversations that managers have with their employees or that HR has with employees can provide a lot of information, especially when the person looking for that information is asking questions like, what do you like about your job?
But that unstructured data, where does it go? Does it go into the ether, or is there a place where that should live?
I think that it's necessary to have a systematic approach to gathering the data and then to document all of the information that was gathered in the form of a position paper almost. So, if you look at Glassdoor and you count, 5 positive reviews and 6 negative reviews, that can go into the documentation. And you can even qualify the positive and the negative with actual quips of the comments that were made from those.
Cutting out the 4-letter words, though.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
Now you got to leave them in. I mean,
well, you have
descriptor's
to
a descriptor.
Well, this is an HR system of record we're talking about, Dwight, so you have to at least obscure them a little bit. But I get your point, Chris, because what you're saying is don't let these things disappear. Keep them as a way of being able to tell a story.
Yeah, you need to draw conclusions from the data that you've gathered, and I think the story approach is a good way to document those conclusions. Certainly, the organization has collected data internally through performance reviews, internal promotion rates, successful hire rates, exit interviews, stay interviews. Some organizations are still using suggestion boxes.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, which can provide information like that. But by far the most popular means of collecting this information is through employee surveys.
Right.
And if the organization is committed to understanding the feedback of their employees, they would conduct those surveys at some regular interval, typically annually. Then they can see that they can run demographic analyses, question by question statistics, factor analysis if you want to get really into it, to see if one question is a predictor of another.
There's also the benchmarking you can get from some of the more popular employee satisfaction surveys. That, to me, that really helps, especially given that when you're doing these analyses, you have to take into consideration the economy and other factors that are extrinsic or that are external to your organization. And that could help you, given that benchmarking data, could help you set the context for, cross sections of populace or even trend analysis over time.
I agree with that, David. The factors that you choose to influence to increase job satisfaction need to be presented in such a way that they need to be aligned with the organization's goals, mm-hmm. and also externally with industry standards.
Right.
So there is context that needs to be put around the information that you gather.
I think AI probably helps that. And to your point about actually building some sort of narrative or story format around it, I was in a large organization before I was at salary.com, and we struggled because we did biannual employee satisfaction surveys, and both as an employee and then when I was a leader, I really had a lot of difficulty with the survey process. The statistics were helpful. We had the benchmarking that you talked about, David, from the stats. But to your point, Chris, we lacked the context, because what they would do, all the written comments, employees got to the point where they're like, I'm not even going to put a written comment because it's never going to, what's important is never going to get to the manager, because they had teams of people who would summarize the data. And it was largely looked at as a joke. It was a big joke. We took the statistics seriously, but the joke part was we just didn't have effective context like you're talking about. And so, having generative AI and some of those other tools to really help advance, I think is going to be a great tool for companies moving forward, not just the big companies. I think this goes for all companies, because you do have to have that context. You do have to have that specific feedback, and you do have to marry that up with the statistics. And it tells a very robust story that can help.
That's right.
Help you figure out what the satisfaction level truly is and what those drivers are and aren't.
Yeah. And when it comes to measuring job satisfaction, it's important to go into those factors that will have the best influence on your organization. So if the organizational goals were to be innovative, so that's an organizational goal, so they would want to focus on factors such as recognition and growth potential, transparency, those factors that would go to understanding innovation, creativity, what drives creativity in this organization.
Mm-hmm.
They could go through that exercise and then focus in on those that they selected would have the most impact on achieving that innovation goal.
I think from a statistical perspective, we could all geek out around what kind of methods, but we're going to save that for another podcast. Because all three of us would love to have that conversation, but I think we're going to leave it.
Yeah.
We'll all squirrel out. It's
yeah, exactly. But I think we'll leave that for another day. I think in this one, I think we've gotten to the goal of, we understand satisfaction better now. We understand what measures to use. And I think we've also talked about where do we go if we don't feel like we have high enough scores. So, Chris, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Dwight, thank you.
Thank you. Chris, don't go out and capsize.
No, please don't.
You don't need to test that one.
No, because this gets
you're already running
people...
around. You've done your time. Yeah.
Put that sailor hat away. We're good. We're good. Thank you very much for being here. We really appreciate it. We're going to have you back, and probably having you on also for a compensation topic as well, if you don't mind.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of compensation topics we can talk about.
We will definitely do that. So thank you very much. And everybody, thank you for listening. Take care and stay safe.
That was the HR Data Labs podcast. If you liked the episode, please subscribe. And if you know anyone that might like to hear it, please send it their way. Thank you for joining us this week, and stay tuned for our next episode. Stay safe.